Hi guys, Lee Cole here, and I have Bruce New Media. Bruce, I love your handle, Bruce New Media, on with me. Bruce, say hello to everybody.
Hello, Lee. Hello, everybody else. Good to be here.
And guys, you are on a bonus to buying Bruce's no resistance method, which I thought was like one of the best things I've seen in months, if not a year or more. Bruce, I really appreciate your taking your time out of your day to talk to my peeps about this, because you know what's funny, Bruce? Then when you gave me a copy of No Resistance Methods, well, one, I knew it'd be great, but I didn't know what it was, and it was totally hilarious. And I was just talking with you about this. Tell everybody where you were the last time you and I got on the phone and we were talking.
Well, we actually were. I didn't plan it this way at all, but I
No.
was actually in a restaurant that was to be a client, and they are now. But it was just, I mean, I never planned it to be that way because we were just on the telephone,
This is like
and
6 months ago, 7 months ago,
yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
It was. I think it was. Well, I know it was last year,
Yeah.
and it was kind of funny because you asked me, and I said, actually, this is where I am, and I am out a lot in general, and I, admit to being somebody who's in a lot of businesses quite often. But it just worked out that that was the only way I could take the call and do that. So that's where I was, and it was,
Well,
you know,
when you gave me No Resistance Method and I looked at it and started reading it, I thought that was hilarious. But
yeah.
more importantly, besides being coincidental, I thought it was really cool because it's real. This really is how you run your business and how you get clients.
Oh, it is absolutely. This is not, I'm sad to say, but a lot of things that I've seen put out by what I call less than great marketers. It's almost like they concoct some elaborate scheme thing, very
Nah,
fancy, usually all, and then they tell you, well, this you can do this, and you'll get business. This is very simple actually. There's nothing complex, but it works. I mean, it is. I can go back. If you like, I'll tell you kind of where I this germinated from.
that'd be great.
If I go
Please.
back 25 years, when I was first starting out with clients, I had left a corporate job, and I looked at everything. I mean, is how do I get in? How do I get to meet people? How do I break the ice? All these expressions, foot in the door. And what I decided was, and I'll show you how this transitioned to this so many years later, I decided, well, I would look at ones who were already advertising, which is a good principle to use anyways, and then I would redo their ads because most of them had terrible ads. Believe me, this was before internet, so I was not even, internet was no one imagined that, I don't think. So I go ahead and I would take the time, to put a real specific ad together for this person, and believe it or not, that often paid off actually at the rate of about 1 out of 3. 1 out of 3 times I do that, I would end up with a client. And I got, in those early years, my biggest single client by giving them this free ad that was a redesign of their existing ad. So it left this impression on me. Wow, this worked, but it was so time consuming. It took a
Right.
lot of time, and there were a lot of duds. I would send out to some contractor. I thought he'd fall in love with this guy. I wouldn't even talk to me. Never get a reply, nothing. So then I heard of people said, well, just give them more generic stuff, stuff about sales or stuff about marketing or a tip sheet on how to advertise, something like that. So I did that, but I also found that that was less effective because it didn't really apply to even their business category, let alone their specific business. It was a very broad kind of thing that even almost a big company looking for clients could have sent to them. But more recently, when I started to have this home down in Florida, I thought, I ought to go out and see what the market is like here. I came down here because I just like the climate and everything. I've been vacationing here for about 25 years. So I decided I'll check this out down here. I'm down here, and I actually was talking to a restaurant guy, and then after that, I don't know, maybe a week or so later, he called me and he said, listen, you remember me, blah, blah, blah. Do you have anything I could use to just put together some flyers and stuff and some things? I want to have some in-restaurant promotions and things that I could hand out and stuff like this, and I want something a little nicer than what I've been using. And he had what most restaurants I saw had, which were really not very attractive pieces. You know, they spend their money on a menu, but then everything else they hardly put any effort into. So specials for the day or the week, they often didn't have really anything nice looking. And so I put some stuff together, and he loved it. And I thought, well, you know what? There's tons of restaurants, bars, lounges, nightclubs. Why am I not just going with one specific niche and then giving them something more specialized than the kind of generic stuff that I used for all businesses? And that's how this came about. I started to realize this was a good thing because not only was it something I could give away that they liked, that almost no one will turn down. I mean, even if they don't want to use it, they'll just say, okay, thanks, you know. And it gives the consultant, the new person particularly, they feel more positive about what they're doing. They're not getting all this negative flack. And end result was that it was actually something that, my gosh, they could sit down at their computer and they could start using right away in a software format, Word, that almost all of them have. So a lot of thought actually went into it, and then over time I changed this a little bit because I've been using it and modified it somewhat. I will tell you that I've had some questions, by the way, where people say the folder has got two different names. Well, that's because when I started, I had named it one thing, and then somebody that I gave it to said, oh, you should call it this. So I changed it, and I think I've got it called the Flyer Portfolio inside the actual file folder that has all the components of the product. But then if you read the manual, it refers to it by a different name. Most people have been able to figure this out, but I have had a few questions about it. But that's what you're actually, if you're going to use it as a CD, that's what you're going to burn, is the contents of that folder, and it's called Flyer Portfolio. So that's how I ended up with it, and it's been very effective, more so than I expected, to be honest with you.
That is a great story. And folks listening, if you have any questions while we're talking, just pop them in the chat. I love that because it makes total sense. I have myself gotten an amazing amount of business, honestly, just kicking around. You know, chiropractors, hair salons. It is amazing if you just keep your eyes and ears open. If you go to various businesses, you just have the sense to talk to them. You can get clients that way. It is not hard to do. And I also love the fact that you recognize that it was good to specialize. Because, you know, when you specialize, you learn to talk that business's language. And you also learn, you also have essentially testimonials. I don't know if you do it this way, but you can say to, you know, the seafood place down by the beach, well, talk to so-and-so who owns the, you know, restaurant up the beach. I did some work for them. I mean, you can do that. And that makes a big difference.
Absolutely, and the more you do that, it's kind of like one of the reasons. I don't know. I know there were a lot of people that picked up the one of the upgrades to this, which included an interview. But that interview with a restaurant, a longtime actually restaurant owner, very nice fellow. One of the reasons I included that was because I thought, you know, the more you would know about a business, even though you've never run it, you could still learn a lot about, you know, the mentality, the thinking that goes on in these owners and these general managers, so that you don't feel like a fool, you know, talking to them.
Sure.
You don't have to lie. Don't tell them, oh, you know, I used to own 2 restaurants. Never do that. But on the other hand, I think that you want to feel like you're comfortable with their lingo, the way they talk, the kind of issues that they deal with their staff particularly. And that interview I did because I knew he would talk about those kind of things. And I think, for instance, if somebody got the program and did not pick up the OTO that dealt with that, it's really worth it just to get the interview, to read all the stuff that he talks about and how he's moved from restaurant to restaurant and what they learned. Makes you a lot sharper, and gives you more confidence.
Yeah, I mean, that really helps you understand where the business owner or the business manager's pain points are, the things that the things they struggle with in marketing, which are the things they're willing to spend money for. And that is really essential. Roger Fung has a great question. Have you used this in niches other than restaurants?
Well, on a very, very narrow basis, very customized basis. When I put this together as a program to offer out, I was debating whether I thought, I think there's, reason that you could do this in some other niches. The same principle, just put together a nice selection of materials that they could use. And I have done a little bit with contractors where I've given them a few things, but not on the scale at all, because with restaurants, there's so many that are so similar. It's pretty easy, and they have that benefit of being easily accessible. I can go into a restaurant 5-6 times as long as I'm a customer or whatever, and I get good results just by doing that. But I haven't really sat down and made like the kind of package that one could use. I think there are some industries that you could do exactly the same thing as long as you had a more customized package of advertising and promotional materials.
Right.
I could actually make a list, and it wouldn't be anything unusual. It'd be ones that you've all heard of. One of the reasons I chose restaurants, again, was availability, ease of access, ease of getting to them,
Right.
and the ability to be there more than once, and to be to develop relationships. They're also getting more and more competitive, so they just seemed like perfect thing. They were. I mean, I realized right away this
It's
is the
kind of
best
like
thing.
the old saying, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." Um, I love restaurants. I mean, yeah, you could do it in other niches, but I mean, how many restaurants are there, and how many clients do you need? I think there are more than enough restaurants to furnish anybody, unless you're living out in a ranch in Montana. I think there are more than enough restaurants to furnish any of us with plenty of clients. I also like what you said about the fact that to go talk to a restaurant manager or owner, other than the fact you're not going to necessarily walk in during peak lunchtime, but you can walk in the restaurant. You can't necessarily walk in a guy's place of business who runs a heating and air company. People generally don't do that. They call up, right? So walking in would be kind of weird, but I mean, we walk in restaurants all the time. They want you to walk in restaurants. They're also very affable people. They
Yeah.
are people.
They are very sociable. I can tell you, I've worked with a lot of industries over the years, and the only more sociable industry, in my opinion, are the beauty and hair salon industry. They have a lot of very sociable people.
Yes,
I
they
did
do.
some I did some heavy duty advertising and promotions for the beauty industry many years ago, and I found them to be some of the nicest, warmest people I could ever imagine. They're very small businesses, though. They're mostly really tiny businesses, and they don't have often they don't have enough revenue to support too much that a consultant would do. I'll give you a little example, though, of how great it is in restaurants. And
Uh,
I'm not avoiding this man's question because, yes, there are probably some other, to answer it, there are some other niches that you could do something very similar with. You probably could. But I'll give you an example of how great restaurant is, too. I have some material in there that shows you how if you or someone that you contract to go in and give these CDs away, or if you do it yourself,
mm,
I have a thing where I simply show you a little bit of one person emailed me and said, wow, this is like kind of a neat little karate script, not karate, but a neat little ninja script,
yeah,
because I had a little couple comebacks that I've used, and I'm never trying to be difficult with anybody. That's not my point. My point is it's sometimes worth it to ask a second or third time, for something, and I'm giving them this anyways. But just to give you a great little line that I've used, and I should have put it in there, is when somebody says, well, he's kind of, would you mind if he just comes out here for a second? I just want to introduce myself. I'll give him this, and then I've got a carry-out order I want to place. Now,
nice.
you think that's cute, but it's really, I've done it because I thought to myself, what's the guy going to do now? He's not going to let me see him just to say hello, and then I've got a carry-out order I want to place. So whether you think that's a little bit sneaky or what, I do things like that.
I think that's
And
fine.
and where are you going to do that? You can't do that in most types of business categories, but in a restaurant, you can make, I could get an order of French fries or whatever to go, and I'm a customer. I'm a
Sure.
customer, and that is what I've loved so much about restaurants. And actually, many of my friends and women that I've gotten to know and all down here have all worked in restaurants. So I don't, maybe just my nature to be so social that way. But that's an example of what you do. You kind of look for opportunities, and I still think this is a great industry to apply this in.
Yeah, there are guys, you will not run out of restaurants. I mean, yeah, you could do it in other industries, but again, you know, why reinvent the wheel? I mean, money is money. I don't care if it comes from a restaurant or a hair salon. Hair salons are great, by the way. I love hair salons, but money is money, and it spends the same way. So I would go with restaurants. Any other questions that you guys have? So, Bruce, you know, another thing that you and I were talking about, something that you do very naturally because you've been doing this kind of stuff so long, that I think a lot of people who want to get into offline marketing struggle with is salesmanship, the basics of how you approach people, what do you do next. I think you know, you and I were talking about the overall status of the industry that provides how-to products and software, et cetera, to people who want to be what we call offline marketers, and how a lot of that kind of misses the mark some. Um, Another thing I loved about your product was this is really no-brainer salesmanship 101. I mean, you tell people exactly what to do, how you go in, how you get somebody's attention. Um, can you talk about that a little bit? Because I really would like people to hear your take on that whole thing we were talking about before the webinar started.
Sure. And this is my short take on what I think is kind of being missed by people, and unfortunately, in some cases, the providers of products they encourage this, and it's just not correct thinking. And I know this because I made my living at this so long that I'm not saying I don't learn new things, but there's just certain things that really haven't changed. You know, you can have all the software in the world and all the advent of the internet and all the great communication, but the biggest communication is still between two people, okay? And if you don't have that and you're very uncomfortable with that, you either have to work at that to overcome that, or this is not necessarily going to be a good occupation for a person. One of the reasons, an example of something that I think is, for newer people, is misexplained to them, let's say, or not taught properly. I see people telling new people, don't waste your time with these little tiny clients. You need to go for these big guns. You need to hit the biggest guys. That's where they'll put stuff out. This is where the money is. And there's all this lingo, and that's fine. That's fine. I mean, I'm not opposed to that. But let me tell you what, when you're starting out, what you need is to build up a little confidence. You need to feel like you're having some small successes. Otherwise, you're going to probably have a long, long dry spell trying to get just off the ground. So what I tell people is, look, if you get a couple of small little clients that almost, I mean, you know, really maybe they can't pay you much, but you get the experience of, you know, mailing something to them, talking to them on the phone, maybe you meet with them in person, you suggest some things to them. If you've never done that before, that's a big deal. Just the act of doing that is a big deal to get your confidence up. If you always worked in an office and you never had this kind of contact, that's something. Whereas if you wait and wait and wait and search for that one golden opportunity that sounds like you could make a ton, and you finally go out and you meet with somebody at a size that's a company that's pretty big, you may fall flat on your face because you really had no experience prior going in on a meeting. And I have counseled and coached a lot of people who those are the stories they would tell me. They would tell me about how they waited and they finally got this, what they thought was a gold mine. They went in there. They were totally unprepared. They didn't realize that manager, that vice president, that marketing officer was accustomed to being having really experienced sales reps in front of him.
Right.
And they had no idea that they were expected to know these things, have a real polished presentation. So they go out mortified, they're humiliated in some cases, and then they're ready to drop the whole thing. This doesn't work. You can't make any money at this. This is bullshit. But it's not.
Yeah.
It's because you tried to run a marathon race when you hadn't even walked across a room. You know?
That's really important. The confidence thing, I think a lot of times I would go so far as to say that a lot of times people buy product after product, software after software, because really what they're trying to do is they're trying to buy the thing that's going to make up for their lack of confidence. In terms of what you said, none of the sales stuff has ever changed in the past several thousand years. And I think people are trying to make up for their lack of confidence in terms of that general structure of dealing with people, talking to them, showing them something that may help their business, and then closing them and giving you some money.
Absolutely. That's where I think, to go back to your original point, that's where I think there's a sort of a disconnect, because you can't be in this and literally have complete avoidance of selling. You just can't do it. And I tell you something, people who are suggesting that to you, if you're newer or even experienced, they're not doing you a service, because it just doesn't work that way. And when people tell you that you're just going to sit there and watch these payments come into your PayPal account, and you'll never have to talk to the people, or you'll never have to meet anybody. Let me say something about the whole meeting people versus just some phone contact. I'll grant you that there's an efficiency to phone work that can't be beat. Of course, you don't have to get in a car, drive anywhere. Your market becomes much larger. It can encompass in multiple countries, let alone states. But here's the deal. Where I get a lot of my best long-term clients that spend the most, that refer the most to me, that really are my friends, they come to me because I got to know them, and most of them in person, face-to-face.
Right.
So I have to tell you, as an example, I was telling my sister does some book work for me for this. As my business has grown, the one thing I'm terrible at is book work and collecting monies and all this, So she's very good at that. She's the more different personality, right? So she does a lot of this for me now, and she was commenting then, looking at all the clients I have, and I've got quite a few that I've never met face-to-face, some for 5-6 years. They pay me every month. Okay, I do certain work for them, certain marketing work. Some of it's very small, and some is by itself. I think a person could make a living on. So we were talking, but the ones that pay the most and that I get the really good projects from are almost always the ones that I know face-to-face. I've been to their business. We've probably gone out to lunch at least once, people like that. So like you said earlier, it's not that you need 1 million clients to make a living at this. You don't. You're nowhere near the big numbers that people suggest. I think what you need is a group that you get to know well enough that when they think marketing, they don't just think of you like, oh, that's the mobile guy, or, oh, that's the guy that did the text messaging, set that. They think of you and think marketing, all the things that could help this business, every single thing. You may not want to participate personally in all those endeavors. You may suggest to the client, I know who does this really well. I just had somebody recently, he wanted me to book bands, find better bands that he could bring into the restaurant.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the truth, as a young guy, I always wanted to be like in the entertainment business, like somebody like that, like an agent or manager for bands and groups. But I don't want to do that today, So I said, I know somebody that can do that, see. But the fact is, he even asked me, tells me that I'm that person he's thinking about. This guy knows a lot about marketing. See, that's what I want them to think about me. He knows a lot about marketing, and he can be. I really think some of these people pay me to be nothing more than a sounding board.
Yep.
To listen to their ideas, because when they tell their wife or the wife tells the husband, they get all this flack, or they realize that the spouse doesn't really know. They tell the general manager, and he's ambiguous or really doesn't have the experience. I really think sometimes I get paid just to be a sounding board, but that's a good thing. That's really a good thing, and that's where you want to niche yourself as you get to know your clients better.
I like that. I love that. And you touched on. We'll wrap it up in a second, but you touched on another thing that is like my major pet peeve. Because when you're saying you want them to look at you as the marketing guy as opposed to the mobile guy or the text message guy, what you're saying is you want them to think of the benefits that they need from hiring somebody like you. You want them to think, I need more people coming in the door, I need more revenue, I need to lower expenses. They don't care. I mean, I was on Skype with a friend of mine earlier today, and I said, they really don't care how you're going to do it. I mean, if you had pixie dust and you could sprinkle it, and they would pay you for pixie dust. They don't care that it's mobile and text or video or whatever. They just want that end result. And I think a lot of people who get into this from the, buying product side, they buy the mobile thing and then they trundle out and they say, well, I'm going to be the mobile guy for all these businesses, and then they wonder why they fail because all these businesses they're looking for what that could do for them, but they haven't translated it into, gee, I need a mobile website.
Right.
Specifically
Yes.
in marketing ease, so many of the people that try to do this get features mixed up with benefits.
That is really true. That whole thing about the newer consultant, the newer marketer, latches onto one idea, one thing,
Yeah.
and has a tendency to decide everybody needs blank. And the truth is, I can tell you without even, without any of the background I have, that everybody probably doesn't need blank.
Right.
Only a percentage does this work well. In fact, if you look at the real stats on mobile, not all the baloney that gets thrown around, is a core group type of businesses that benefit most from mobile. And honestly, the rest do not. It is much less, effective. Text messaging has great benefits in, I'll tell you, restaurants, places that the opportunities, the specials, the menus
Right.
can change overnight. Great opportunities to use that there. But, honestly, is that as effective for a law firm? No. There's a lot of things
It's like
that I see.
special on divorces on
Right.
Thursday. For,
Yeah,
first 10 people, 75% off.
yeah. Unhappy in your marriage? Maybe now's the time to switch partners. I mean,
Right.
you see this sometimes, and it's like there definitely is no case where one size fits all. The better you get at this, the more you realize you give them ideas, and they can almost lead you into, well, this is what we were thinking of doing.
Right.
And then after that, I have some questions in there. In fact, I think something that I put out that I added into there, which the kind of questions you want to always ask in the beginning. Oh, I sent a thing to my email list, and one of the top 5 questions was, is there room for improvement in what you're doing now? That's all I'm asking. I just want to know if there's room for improvement, marketing-wise, in what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, only a very closed-minded person is going to say no to that.
Right, or a total cynic, yeah. Right.
Right. Somebody who just, but believe me, that's a great lead-off, asking them if there's room for improvement what you're doing now. I may have something for you, and honestly, I may not. It depends. But I have worked with businesses like yours, and we've enjoyed some real successes. Do you have a few minutes I could share those with you? I mean, there's a million ways to develop that. But imagine I've just met somebody in their own restaurant, in their own business, and on top of it, I'm spending money there.
Mm-hmm.
They will listen to me.
Oh, yeah.
They will give me conversation. And I found that combination, and that's so resistance-free, so rejection-free, is probably one of the best things to also get a newer person to have confidence, because they don't think all I'm doing is going out and bothering people, or I'm intruding on their day, this kind of stuff. And that is why, again, I really went at the restaurant, bar, lounge, nightclub type places, and I should add country clubs, small country clubs and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
also go into that. I just went to see one like a couple days ago,
Mm-hmm.
and they're as good a candidate for this as anything. All those kind of places allow you to be sort of the marketer and also the customer a little bit if you need to be.
Right.
And that's a sweet combination, and it works.
I love it. This is awesome. This is so much real experienced information is, what you've talked about for the past 30 minutes. Ron has a question. Would you charge if the owner wants you to modify the flyer, such as completely changing the font's color, adding photos of the restaurants, et cetera, et cetera?
This is, not to be a cop out, but this is a depends. It
Yeah.
depends, because first of all, uh, I want to help them. Okay, so if I look at the amount of work and I don't see it as real significant for me, I might make it appear like it's a lot of work, but it might
Mhm.
be pretty easy for me to really do. Then I might not charge, or I might tell them, normally, I do charge for that, but in your case, I'm not going to charge you, because I think you and I could start to have a business relationship that would be a lot more than just some flyers.
There you go.
See, I might try to use something like that. I have to tell you, if it's a decent-sized restaurant or facility, particularly if I know the owner has, a lot of restaurants owners have more than one restaurant, by the way.
Yeah.
If I know that this guy is connected into a group, I won't charge him. No, because the relationship at that stage is worth more than, what am I going to get, $100, $200? It's not that much. So I probably won't. But I might say, but let's do this. You and I get together with your general manager, and let's talk about what you're trying to do over the next 3-4 months. Have a sit down over that, and if you're comfortable with that, I'm not going to charge you. See, now I got
I like that.
real meeting, and I leveraged something that probably isn't going to be that much work for me anyways.
Right.
I believe all marketers should get really comfortable with Word, and the reason I don't put these things in Photoshop, for instance, is 99% of these restaurants, they don't have Photoshop, and if they have it, there's no one there that knows how to use it. I've literally had that happen.
Right.
Where I go back there and we look at the thing and I go, well, you've got Photoshop, that's C and that's InDesign. Oh, we don't know how to work those though. I don't have any idea. My so and so put that, install that. I don't even know how to use it. But with a little
Makes
effort,
total
they can
sense.
learn Word. So that's why I did that, because I had somebody ask me, why aren't these in PSD files? Well, because I want to make it a little bit easier and not give them a negative experience. Oh, they won't be able to, as soon as they read them, they won't be able to open them,
Yeah.
So,
Cool. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for the bonus time. This has been incredible. Guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this. There will be a replay, which generally takes me about 24 hours to turn around because I got to reformat it. And Bruce, I'll give you a copy of the replay. And there's so much information here. I would encourage everybody just to look at it at least once more, probably several more times. This is phenomenal, Bruce. Thank you so much.
you're very nicely. You're one person I was very happy to come on here, because I know you do a lot of good with these people, and Lee is the real deal. For those that don't know him, I think I've known him like 4.5 years, maybe
About
little more
that,
than
yeah.
that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it's funny. I almost was going to stop at your place in Atlanta when I was moving down here. I wasn't that far actually
Yeah,
from Atlanta.
yeah, hit me up next time you drive through Atlanta. We'll sit down and have lunch.
Yeah, and I would have done that. But in any event, thank you guys very much. And you got any questions, just get a hold of Lee or I. I'll be glad to help you. And try this out. This thing works, and it's worth your time and investment.
Awesome. Thank you so much. See y'all later.